Hello, welcome to PODnas. This is a sports show with a little bit of a Cajun flair. I'm Daniel Hawks. That's Jarrett Roser.
Did you point
I
for
pointed,
yourself?
and I also pointed at you when I said my name. Anyway, today we're going to be previewing USA basketball. I'm a big dumb idiot. Not previewing. USA basketball just had a game against Australia yesterday, and then the Pelicans just signed. Had an interesting signing that we think leads a little bit into what's going to happen this season. But Jarrett, how are you doing? Any more ribs on me for the intro today?
I mean, I think we're good for now. I'm sure more will come up during the process of the show, but
Of just us being here and doing the show. I think it will too, actually. But let's get into it. First of all, USA beat Australia yesterday in another exhibition game before the Paris Olympics. They won 98-92. Australia actually had a late comeback. The USA had 18 turnovers. It's very clear and obvious that this team is still trying to figure out how to play together. While they're figuring that out, it would be great if we could beat Australia by more than 6 points. But what do you think? What do you think is on the horizon? Is there a team capable of actually beating this USA team in the Olympics? Because Canada
yeah,
was the shortest odds, and they took care of business with them. We'll get into that in a little bit as well.
yeah. I mean, I think we've seen for decades now the rest of the world catch up to some degree, or at least close the gap in basketball with the U.S. And so the field, from everything that I understand, and I mean, look, I'm not out there scouting every international basketball team, but just
You should be.
looking at yeah. If somebody wants to foot that bill, I'll travel the world and watch basketball for sure. But it doesn't really fit into my current schedule of trying to keep the lights on. But
Actually, I want to jump in on that with you. If someone does that for you, I'm down. I'll come along with. I'll hold your bags. I'll do whatever. I'll write your notes. I'll type up your notes every day after.
this reminds me, this is going to be a wild tangent, but when David Hellman and I lived 2 doors down from each other and would just talk about the concept of being someone's donut boy, which was essentially just you would go get the donuts. And so like we took turns talking about whoever was positioning themselves better. Obviously, at this point, I would be Hellman's donut boy,
Yeah,
but
for sure, for sure.
there were stretches where we were each other's donut boys and would ride Baton Rouge in the morning because whoever had less or more to do that day.
That's
I
actually how I
realized,
met David Hellman, was being his donut boy.
yeah, kind of, yeah, you
Oh,
were
because
his. We've talked about that before. You were his laptop boy for the NCAA tournament.
yeah, and that's just how I do. But back to basketball.
Yeah, good
Is
job
there?
bringing it back. I mean, look,
Hey, I'm
essentially,
good at segues, man.
I think the field is really strong, and you get to a point where when you have that many quality basketball teams on any given day, even if you're supposed to be the best, there's an opportunity that you go out there and turn the ball over too much, or shots don't fall, and something goes, goes against you in terms of a final score and dropping a game. I think though that it's pretty clear that this Team USA is the team to beat and the most talented. And I think a well-constructed roster, which we'll get into some of that because Jaylen Brown would beg to differ on a position or
I
two.
was
But
gonna say, would this have not been a contest if like Jaylen Brown was coming out with Tatum and Drew on the second team or something like that? Well, I think Tatum's on the starting lineup, but yeah,
no, I mean, yeah, and Tatum did start, which I like. I think that's kind of, we're at a point right now, and they only beat Australia by 6, but Australia's got a good basketball team and
and
probably one that is a little bit more cohesive at this point than the
Australia
USA.
won the bronze in the last Olympics, and this is a team that's actually played together a bunch. So there's a little bit more, as Steve Kerr said, continuity there. And the USA, they were up by 24 in the third, and Steve Kerr even said after, he said they stopped playing mid third quarter and started turning the ball over.
Yeah.
I don't think that is really going to happen in Paris, or at least I hope not. Um, you know,
No, and
but
there's a reason that these games are happening. And the Team USA in particular is working out a lot of kinks, figuring out lineups and rotations. And so that's kind of what I'm watching right now is, how how quickly is Joel Embiid adjusting after not looking particularly strong in that opener against Canada, and who's fitting well together and whatnot. And I have all the confidence in the world, no pun intended, because we're talking, world competition, but I have all the confidence in the world that Team USA goes to Paris and wins a basketball gold. I think they're certainly positioned to do so with the mixture of talent and how those pieces fit. And I mentioned, I guess we both kind of alluded to it. I think they did a good job putting together an actual team and not just taking the 12 biggest star names. And I think that Derek White is going to be a nice fit on this team. I think Drew Holiday is going to be a really key piece of this team, despite the fact that fans of the NBA might not look at him as one of the top 10 to 12 players in the league. I think the way that they put this team together is going to suit well for this competition.
That Derek White and Drew Holiday both are two guys who aren't afraid to go and do the dirty work, who don't necessarily need to score or necessarily need the ball in their hands to contribute. One thing that Russillo said that, and it was a pod last week that I listened to that I really enjoyed, was how much I really liked Anthony Davis at the 5 and Bam at the 4. Like, that is just unstoppable. And it's so much fun to watch with how both of them can move the floor, how big they are, how versatile they are. That's been one of my favorite things to watch, and one of the things that I'm going to continue to enjoy watching, because a lot of the guard guys from, LeBron and up, like that, those are players that we hyper focus on during the NBA season. And while Bam is a name and he's a star in the league, getting to see him play alongside Anthony Davis like that, it makes me think that Miami needs to go get just a center and move Bam to the 4.
And I think one of my biggest takeaways so far, you mentioned those two guys. I mentioned Embiid not looking great out the gates. I think both of those guys have looked better among the U.S. bigs than Embiid has thus far. And 2 games in, obviously, we're still early on in this process, but my mindset is start AD and let Joel Embiid be kind of the big curveball to throw in there with different lineups off the bench. But I think
the 76ers would probably like that more too. To be honest,
yeah.
Like, let's pump Joel's minutes on already what's going to be a shortened off season for him.
After watching him, not look great moving around out there in the first game, they probably would have, loved to have seen him take the flight back with Kawhi. Or they were in Vegas at that point, so not quite the same. But to watch him rest when they know that they have big things in their mind for next spring, as nice as it is to, have a guy included with the Olympic push, they want to go win an NBA championship. And they have a guy on that roster that has missed a lot of time in key moments. But I have liked the more mobile bigs so far to anchor more of the time, more of the lineups. And so I'm interested to see if this team is sticking with Embiid as their starting big. I think we'll see obviously kind of a variety of lineups used throughout each game anyway. But that's my biggest thing, is watching how some of that develops right now.
For sure. And I was looking up here a little bit, if you noticed, because I think we may get another edition of Jared's Anger Corner. Because it's a Hawks anger thing, is how much of a B word Dillon Brooks is. And also Canada's just catching L's left and right this summer. Okay. Drake, we just beat them. They're going to lose in the Olympics. I can't take it anymore. I can't take anyway. We're going to show you this very short 7-second clip real quick.
Would you say Canada, they not like us?
Oh, that was so good. Oh, I love that so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna play this little guy right here.
And how to feel to be out there in that environment.
Yo, okay, wait, real quick. This look, this look, and that look.
Yeah,
but this one may become my phone background.
There was a moment where Ant kind of swung his head around in somewhat of disbelief and trying to contain himself a little bit, where there was like an angle of it that made me think of Dillon on Chappelle's show. Like you got to be kidding me, man. But
yeah.
you could tell Ant was kind of recognizing the circumstances of being in front of a media crowd and probably not needing to snap back at Dillon Brooks for being a complete clown.
He is. It's 1000%. And he thinks he's so much better than he is. He was talking so much smack before that USA Canada game. And then they just got waxed. And particularly, I saw him get waxed multiple times. Like, it's not like you're not even like the fourth best guard on your team. All right. Like, calm it. Just calm down.
And a lot like when I went off with Pat Bev at the end of the Bucks playoff run is they're two guys that have really tried to lean into this kind of scrappy, trash talking, get in opponents' heads type niche or whatever. But doing dumb things like throwing a basketball at a fan or being completely disrespectful to a reporter after the game like Pat Bev did, or in this case, Dillon Brooks walking through the middle of an interview, very clearly aware of the circumstances of what was going on. And I saw people talking about, apparently he did that to multiple Team USA players being interviewed. It's just, it's Bush League clown show BS. What are you doing at that point? You're outside of the lines of competition. Nobody cares. You're not getting into Ant's head to throw him off for a potential later meeting. This is just completely superfluous nonsense of being a tool.
Yes. After you just lost. Like, after you lost. Like, you're not in his head. He already beat you where it mattered and went off. So it's not like Mr. Defensive Stopper. It took him a while to get going in that game, but then he just decided to go off and Ant went off. Like, you didn't do anything. And you just doing that makes you look like a sore loser, which you are. I've seen it happen when you were in Memphis. Couldn't see it this year because your team couldn't make the playoffs or the play-in. Like, shut up.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's goofy. I don't know what else to say about it other than what
it's
we've
goofy.
already said.
It sucks. And listen, I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna get a curse jar. Dillon Brooks.
Damn.
I'm doing a big curse jar on that one. I'll add $2 to it. It'll be right down there at the bottom. I hate him.
Does he annoy you more than Pat Bev?
Yes, 1000%. He 1000. Pat Bev's nothing. Pat, go take your big contract in Europe and get out of my life. But Dillon Brooks is still there. He's like that little, like, oh, I can't. There's something on my back. I can't get it. Oh, it's so annoying. I can't get that mid scratch, but that scratch is just a douchebag.
Is douchebag a curse word? Put 50 cents in.
Do I have to bleep it?
I don't know.
We may just cut this entire bit if it's too NC-17. But let's move on real quick. One last thing. Pelicans had a signing of Carlo.
Hold on.
No. We're doing it.
Because I want to talk about the Jaylen Brown flash out of Derek White being added to that roster.
Well, hey, that's a little foreshadowing for you guys about what we're going to do next. Let's talk about Jaylen Brown.
So I was a little bit thrown by how surprised so many people seem to be by Derek White's addition, because I'd heard Derek White as a top name to replace Kawhi if Kawhi couldn't go. Since the roster was initially announced.
Yeah.
So surprise factor was not there for me on that. The most surprising thing to me was watching Jaylen Brown, who admittedly is off of a phenomenal playoff run, snap on social media repeatedly about not just him not being added, which whatever you want to say about his level of interaction with Nike and conspiracy theory and how much you buy into his issues there and what you think about that. The fact that he lashed out as many times as he did about his teammate being chosen for an opportunity was a little bit wild to me. It reminded me of instances I watched with, the high school side and different recruiting stuff, and me snapping at parents of, as soon as you try to throw another kid under the bus as leverage to hype your kid up, I'm kind of out on that conversation. And for Jaylen Brown to be this ticked off that his teammate is now a member of Team USA, a guy that was hugely impactful on that Celtics championship run in his own right, I thought was a really weird vibe, and just I don't know, not the best look to me of how he played that.
No, it's not. It's not great, but I also that's kind of. I mean, even before the contract thing, he's very. It seems from the very. I don't know Jaylen Brown at all. I don't know if you knew that. Um, he
Yeah,
seems
I
very
was pretty
impacted
sure.
by being left off or being not selected. And I would almost even take it as you have to look at doing this when you're in that position, when you are who he is. Uh, but as someone who can, just spout off stuff when I'm angry and not think about what I just said, that's kind of what I took it as. I completely get your side of it. I think I just gave it a little more grace because that's a that's a mess up that I do a lot on a much less scale. He just went to
That's
Twitter.
Yeah, but I think in that situation, he has to have some level of awareness,
Oh
and
yeah.
particularly the fact that he kept coming back and hitting it with multiple tweets. And so I don't know. There's some level of, we all need to do a better job. There's stuff that I've tweeted certainly that I wish I hadn't tweeted, but when you're in his position and go through the level of media training and PR management and dynamics and know that the stakes are what they are, to then have no filter and no self-awareness or second thought and just keep going back to that well under those circumstances. I think the dynamic of lashing out about awards or selections or whatnot at when there's someone else next to you who you're essentially saying, well, they shouldn't have been on that, is part of the subtext, whether that's a priority of his message or not.
For sure.
Stuff like that always kind of rubs me the wrong way, even going down to, again, like high school level rankings or all state selections or whatever, that part of what you're saying is kind of a knock on the other person. And for him in this situation was an extremely high profile instance, and one where that knock was against his teammate.
Well, hopefully they don't work it out and it derails the Celtics championship like it did the Warriors and Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. So
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, I have seen they've
yeah,
they've tried to kind of quell the situation and say they're fine, like it's not an issue between them. But I would love if it was. You're right.
yeah. So that's what I'll take from it. All right. Let's can we remove, I think we
Yeah,
covered it. We covered it.
yeah, I wanted
I
to vent
understand.
about that more than I wanted to vent about Dillon Brooks, honestly. So I didn't
Okay,
want to
well,
leave it undiscussed.
I
Yeah.
projected about the Dillon Brooks thing. I wanted to vent about that. So,
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad we both got our soapboxes. That's a nice thing about PODnas here, is that we're always willing to give each other a little bit of time to go off on tangents.
Just go ahead and cook.
Yeah, let's do it. Next, we're going to talk about the Pelicans. They had the signing of a second round guy from 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Carlo
Makovich. Yeah, I'm just trying to
Makovich.
remember which draft it was, because years really blur together for me.
Yeah. But anyway, Jarrett, you thought that this signing, we were talking about in before, this makes it look more than ever that they're just willing to roll into the season with the team as currently constructed. Tell me a little bit about why you think that, if there's, what are the reasons for that, and kind of what that will mean for the Pelicans moving in with this roster as is.
Yeah, I mean, I think they tried to remain fairly flexible with the roster, waiting to see, how some potential trade dynamics played out or developed in terms of their conversations with other teams and interest level and potential fit in terms of possible trade value and trade avenues. They tried to stay pretty flexible with that, and now in the past week we've seen them sign two big men, Daniel Tice on on a minimum deal, and now with the the second round exception for Karlo Makovic, I think you're just seeing them fill out that roster more, tighten up some of the ability of what they can do, and look more poised to potentially go into the season, as you mentioned, as is. And also, during this stretch, the early summer league games, David Griffin has gone on television and talked about how he wants the team to be able to play small and fast, which starts to lead itself into, okay, are they going to lean into some more Zion as the 5 type minutes as part of this equation too? And I start to feel, as the Ingram dynamic continues to drag on and he doesn't get traded, and they continue to address that big man situation with other contracts, it seems like they're positioning themselves to be more and more comfortable going into the season with Ingram as is.
And Brandon Ingram cannot be traded once he gets past a certain date, or what is the deal with that?
So if he extends after August 6th, then he's on the roster for this year, because he wouldn't be able to be traded in those 6 months. And so we would get to the trade deadline before that 6 months was up. So there's still time. I mean, we're still in mid-July. I mentioned on, I think it was the previous episode or one of the last couple of episodes, that I think there's somewhat of a holding pattern in a variety of ways, watching BI's representation get a feel from around the league of what his value is in terms of the salary negotiations, as well as what's going on in Utah with Lauri Markkanen. And do the Warriors potentially make a big swing and trade and get him? Does another team come in and possibly trade and get him? And how does that shake up the market for a Brandon Ingram? And I think there's still time for some of that to sort out and potentially a move to get made. But I think the Pels have positioned themselves to be more ready to go into the season without another big deal than would have been the case a week to 10 days ago.
Yeah. And I will say, from watching a couple of the summer league games, Jordan Hawkins does look like I love to see when players look in that second year look like they shouldn't be in the summer league. Like they are just too talented for like the rookies who are figuring out, and those second year G League players that are figuring out that are on these teams. Jordan Hawkins absolutely looks there. So that's been fun to watch. Excited to see what he's going to do.
Yeah. I'm excited about him. He's someone that when the draft board last year shook up the way it did, and Hawkins was there for the Pels, that's who I wanted them to take at whatever, I think it was 14 that they took him. And so to watch him continue to develop into, more and more of an NBA player, I certainly think he has much ahead, continuing to fill out and become a better defender and be able to stay on the floor more. But his offensive game is super intriguing, particularly as a high level shooter on a team that wants as many of those as possible to space things out for Z and DeJounte.
We're going to keep you up to date on everything Pelicans here at PODnas. That's what we do. We are the sports show with a Cajun flair. We are on social. We got PODnas_LA on Instagram. I think we're going to get a Twitter X soon. We'll look at it. Just go to Louisiana versus all y'all to find all PODnas information. Jared is great with those updates. Please like this video, comment on it, share it if you want, and follow or subscribe. We want to hear from you. If you disagreed with us, agreed with us, we want to talk to you about it all. That's all I have for us today. PODnas out. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma.